Okay. Welcome back to the Lords of Lore podcast. I'm Matt.
I'm Luca.
And I'm Matt.
I love that. I don't get sick of that. Matt, welcome back to the show. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thank you for having me again. It's always a fun time.
Of course. Let's just get straight into it. Luca, what do you got for us this week?
We're gonna be talking about the Brandon Sanderson Kickstarter.
Brando
Sando.
The man, the myth, the Giga Chad himself.
Yo, this is actually an insane Kickstarter. Like, I saw his video where he was like, I lied to you, or like, my surprise.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, like, I've just had some extra time in the past year, so I wrote 4 full-length novels.
Yeah,
insane.
On
That's
top
insane.
of everything I wrote
Yeah.
already this year.
Don't worry, I'm working on a mainline Mistborn book. Stormlight 5 is coming down the pipeline. I've got my non-Cosmere books. But here's 4 more that I just completed straight up. And you're
For
like,
real.
what?
Okay, so Matt, you're a big Brando Sando guy, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And
Yeah.
Luca, I believe one time on this show you said Brandon Sanderson writes books faster than you read them. You're still on
He does.
Oathbringer, right? Or
Genuinely,
something?
Yeah, I'm still on the 3rd Stormlight book. I'm on
Oh.
Oathbringer. He was writing the 4th book when I started Oathbringer, and the 4th book has been out for a year, and I'm still.
Yeah. He's
Oh.
insane. Like, I follow his Twitter and a bunch of his subreddits and stuff pretty closely because I discovered his books about like 2 years ago, and then I just blew through the entire Cosmere in
Wow.
like no
Mhm.
time. I just, at work, I would read. At home, I would read. If I had free time with anyone, like I was basically just reading those books. I saw his like Twitter and stuff, and it was so foreboding, man. It was terrifying. He was like, "Oh yeah, I've got a really big announcement thing. It's about my mental health and stuff coming. Like, I'm sorry, guys, some stuff has not gone quite the way I hoped it would." And it just felt really bad. I was like, oh, I hope his family's okay, or like,
Yeah.
I hope you're doing okay in the pandemic and stuff. And then he got me so good with that video, man. He's just like, gotcha, 4 new books. The way that they're putting those books out too is really cool. Like, I'm definitely planning, like with Cam, I think we're gonna try and do some of those Cosmere novellas as like the complete blind read book club type thing, because it sounds really cool.
If you need a place to record that, Chad, and upload it to the internet.
Hey, there we go.
Okay, wait. So I know next to nothing about this Kickstarter.
Okay.
So you guys, like, I know how big it is. I know there's 4 books, but are these books part of a already existing universe? Are they new things? Like, what is the significance to the actual content?
So from what I saw, like 2 of the books I think are part of the Cosmere, and 2 are not. I could be wrong. I know 1 at least for sure is part of the Cosmere, and it's the
Mhm.
first book coming in the Kickstarter. And like, I have the Kickstarter open here. Like, what you get, it's a full year's worth of like monthly things.
Oh, okay.
So like in January you get book 1, April book 2, July book 3, and October book 4. And then every other month you get like
Swag.
Cosmere themed, or like
Yeah.
his other work themed swag boxes. I don't know what's in them. And then like, I guess depending on which tier you support, you get like hardcover or ebooks or audiobooks or whatever you want.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
and
so-
and what's the baseline tier level? Do we have that?
You just get like ebooks.
Yeah, I think it's just
basically, with no
ebooks.
swag boxes. It's just
Okay.
every time the book releases, you immediately get an ebook release.
Okay,
Yeah.
like
That's
Kindle
your
type of
baseline.
thing. And then
Yeah.
what's the dollar amount there? USD? What
I'll be honest, it is a bit pricey.
okay.
Like, if Luca has it in front of him, he probably has a better.
Yeah, I think so. 40 or more is the quarterly ebooks.
Okay.
60
not
or
bad.
more is audiobooks and ebooks. 160 or more, you get the premium hardcover, and 220 or more, you get all of them,
Yeah.
quarterly ebooks, audiobooks. And with 360 or more, you get 8 swag boxes along with all
Okay.
the books.
Yeah. The only
okay.
thing that's misleading about that is I'm a big hardcover fan. I like reading physical books, and
Mhm.
a lot of the Cosmere books have really cool cover arts for their hardcover stuff. So I was looking to try and jump into that, but I also wanted the swag boxes. So that was like 360 or 380 or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's a shipping cost on top of that,
Right. Yeah.
and the shipping cost was like $420 or something.
Oh,
Okay.
whoa, wow,
Yeah.
okay.
So
Well, I
getting the
guess yeah, because it's not one
it's-
flat fee.
yeah,
It's,
exactly right. It has to cover
shit.
all of the shipments.
Yeah.
So yeah, to get all of the books and the swag stuff with the hardcovers, it was like $900. It was
Okay.
like,
Yikes.
Well, I mean, looking at this, it has 79,000 backers and it's
Oh, yeah.
raised $25 million.
it
Canadian.
smashed it. It smashed it in like
Wow.
in under 10 hours or something. It had crossed like $9 million.
So
or something
I think, if I'm
ridiculous.
not mistaken, this is now the biggest Kickstarter project of all time.
Yeah.
And I think
I
it,
think
it
so.
was that after day one.
I know it was like the quickest to 10 million or something like that.
Yeah.
It was like insanely fast.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think it was the Pebble smartwatches or something were
Yes,
the top
was
for
the
a
top
while.
one.
And
I
then
think that was 15 million or 25 or something.
yeah, and I think I saw that yesterday that the Kickstarter was only like a couple million off. And
Yeah.
today I'm assuming it just smashed straight through it.
Wow. That's, I mean, okay, so will you guys be pledging for this?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, I think so.
I might have to skip the swag boxes just
Yeah.
because like $900 is a lot of money to just shell out in one
Yeah.
go. Yeah, I don't know which tier I'm gonna go in for yet, just because I would really like those hardcover books to go on my shelf, but we'll see what happens.
I mean, these just like teaser covers are so cool already.
Yeah. I was gonna say as well, it has been confirmed that 3 of them are Cosmere related.
Okay, 3 are cosmic.
And
wow, okay.
one of them is
Nice.
about a character that we've already met but doesn't have a main story about.
Okay, cool.
Cool. Okay, so you guys are gonna pledge to this. I'm on the fence. I want to pledge to it just because of what it is. I might never read these books, but because this is like a fantasy author Kickstarter, which is now the biggest Kickstarter of all time, I feel inclined as a fan of the genre and the medium to pledge just to be part of it. But I imagine like if this was one of my favorite authors, like it is for you, Matt, I would be right there too. Like if this was Evan Winter or Anthony Ryan, like I would be, and what sort of precedent does this set? Like this could change everything when we talk about relations between, authors and publishing companies. Like, what, I mean, imagine you're the person negotiating the next deal for Brandon Sanderson now.
Oh, exactly.
Like,
right.
I could walk away at anything below $12 million, man.
Yeah.
I don't need it.
Yeah.
I'll just go back to Kickstarter.
Yeah.
That's insane. Like, I even know like Vox Machina, like different medium for sure. And obviously, like the prices are way higher when we talk about something about releasing like a show or making a show. But for books, $25 million, what the fuck?
It's insane. Like when I saw that, like how quickly it smashed through all of its goals, my mind was blown. I was like, I just kept seeing memes about, I don't know if you guys have watched Breaking Bad. There's the big bodyguard guy who just is like laying on the money. It's just, I just saw so many memes saying Brandon Sanderson and his wife after looking at the Kickstarter, because it's just like, that is a mind-boggling like amount of money in such a short period of time. And yeah, like you said, Matt, it really changes the game, because at this point, I mean, if you think you have a successful book and you have a name for yourself already in the industry, you can just look to this and be like, you know what, maybe I don't need to go like haggle with a publisher for every cent and dime to try and get this across the line now.
Like, so, I even look at like, we're all familiar with the RPG community, and a lot of those books are, direct to consumer through things like Kickstarter, Indiegogo, or even like drive-through RPG and stuff like that. And they have been like ultra successful. Yeah. So now seeing it move over into like storytelling, like novels being explored on Kickstarter, I'm like, what are the benefits if someone like, Evan Winter after Rage of Dragons just went straight to Kickstarter, opposed to, signing with Orbit or whatever the case is. Orbit, we love you, by the way, but I'm like, this could change like literally everything in what we know of like distribution for books. And I don't know, I just think that's fascinating. Obviously Brandon Sanderson is like, one of the bigger authors in the fantasy community for sure, but wow, just that number is staggering. Like, yeah,
it's a madness, pure madness.
I think I saw an interview recently with Sam Riegel where part of the Vox Machina team saying, when it started to become millions and millions of dollars, there was a lot of like, I had to go into the bathroom and like vomit because like I just couldn't comprehend the amount of money. And that was a team of people, right? Yeah. And that was a team of people with a background in making animated projects to a certain extent. So these type of numbers for Brandon Sanderson, I can only imagine what that fucking first hour, 2 hours was like. You're like, oh shit, now I have to actually do this shit. And he's already done it. It's like, oh man.
He really is inhuman in the way he writes. It's ridiculous, man. I just don't get it. Like, you see people like George R. R. Martin and stuff struggling to finish things and like really just kind of losing track of where they're going with all their stuff. And Sanderson is like, I got stressed, so I wrote a full series, man. Yeah. I don't know. Like,
it's just funny. It's like, what did you think an author was going to do in the COVID shutdowns? Like, I just kept writing. I don't know. So many less interviews to do. I like thinking about it in that perspective of like Brandon Sanderson, like you say, Matt, being a Giga Chad and just be like George R. R. Martin soft.
But for real, he writes like in 1 year, he's written more than some authors put out in like a decade.
Yeah, like Patrick Rothfuss right now is sitting at home going, how?
Yeah,
how do you do this, man? I haven't been able to finish one book in like 10 plus years. How are you doing this? It doesn't make sense.
Right.
I'm still like, I want to pledge this just again, just to be a part of it. But like, maybe I have to get into Cosmere now.
Look, man, I got a bunch of books for you, Matt.
Awesome.
I got a lot of books.
Well, yeah, right on.
Anyway, that'll do it for our Kickstarter conversation.
Cool.
Okay, let's jump over into something. I'm going to ask you guys. I'm going to start this this subject with a question. Luca, what is the origin of orcs in the Tolkien universe?
From what I remember, it is corrupted elves.
Okay.
Elves corrupted with evil.
And what about you, Matt?
I'm going to say thank you for asking Luca first. I'm going to take his answer as well.
Okay. So you're both right when it comes to...
Thanks, Luca. Appreciate
it. The current Tolkien verse and also the films. But originally that wasn't the case. And there wasn't an answer until after J.R.R. Tolkien passed away. Okay. It was something he had never decided on. And this was fascinating to me. I learned this watching Billy Boyd and Don Monahan's podcast, where they had like a Tolkien expert come in. And he said, if this was the one question he could ask the Tolkien, it would be this: what is the true origin of orcs? So I guess the way it goes is when the Silmarillion was released, it was Christopher who sort of took the notes on and decided on corrupted elves. But this historian or this Tolkien, his name is Corey something, I can't remember. But this guy's insane, by the way. He has a podcast where each episode he does one page of Lord of the Rings and just dissects it. They're like on 150 episodes and they just reached like, they've barely left Rivendell. Like,
damn.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Like this, he's got like his whole university is like dedicated to writing and stuff. Anyways, so I find this fascinating because what he sort of talked about, this Corey, he was saying, it makes sense if they're corrupted elves for one generation, maybe two. We get into the whole nature versus nurture conversation. But if, the orcs have no free will and they're Sauron's puppets, what about their children? Like if orcs reproduce, would their children not be born with free will? Like it gets very philosophical, but it makes you question, like, that is kind of not a plot hole, but it's not really explained why that's not the case. And so we wanted clarification on that. But one of the original ideas for orcs was that they're not organic beings at all. Like they're not, they're created, they're not, or how would it, they're made, they're not created, I guess. Like they're not birthed. So they're almost like constructs, sort of like in D&D, like they're made of mud. And we sort of get that a little bit in the movie where we see like them pulling the orcs out of the mud and they're just sort of like fully formed. But I always perceive that as like they're pulling dead elves out of the ground and like they're undead elves. When I was a kid, that's what I thought that scene was. But I love this idea of orcs and uruk-hai being like constructs. They're not real beings. They're just like created with the will of Sauron already influencing them. I think maybe if that was the case, we wouldn't get the meats back on the menu scene because that shows some agency there. But most other things with orcs and the conversations they have, like in the films, they are pretty just like robotic, which made me think like, oh, I've actually seen this sort of concept before. And I think about Star Wars, like the droid army opposed to something like, the stormtroopers. it's easier to have Jedi slicing droids. That can be PG. But as soon as they're cutting dudes down, it's like, whoa, this, that's why Revenge of the Sith's got to have a PG-13 rating, because, we're getting clone troopers on Jedi and Jedi on Jedi fights. So, and, we see this like throughout the medium of fantasy where, like this one dark being has brought this army of demons or this army of constructs or this army of droids, whatever the case is. And I just think it's fascinating that like that opens itself up to a certain storytelling where we can focus on the humanity of our protagonists and like the hero factions, but also it takes away from, there's a beautiful scene in I think it's Two Towers where Sam and Frodo, it's like the potato scene, and then they see the elephant come in, and then a guy gets killed right in front of them, and like I think he gets yeeted off the elephant or something, and they're sort of like staring at him, and Sam's staring at him for a while, and I guess in the book it's sort of narrated through Sam's thoughts, like what was his, like he's a person the same way I am, why did he choose to do this? Is he truly evil, or was it his environment? In the movie, that's more sort of Faramir, voicing those things. But anyways, I've been rambling. What are you guys' thoughts on, I guess I want to call this concept droid armies, but construct armies. Let's go with you first, Luca. What are your thoughts just on that concept?
I mean, it's recurring in fantasy sci-fi. As soon as you were talking about that theory, what came to my mind was like Warhammer 40K, because that's actually orcs in Warhammer are like a fungus or something, right? Yeah. Okay. But like it's funny that you mentioned like droid armies, or like sort of armies without any humanity, like just goons you can destroy any number of without having any moral dilemmas.
Right.
I don't remember the last time I like read a book with that trope on it, like, because for example, everything we've ruminated on, like all these fantasy books, none of them have that really, aside from like the bone shard daughter borderline, but like not even there, like not even.
Well, and that's a fascinating thing too, is that from an outside perspective within that universe, one might feel that way, as if they are a construct army, but when we get more in depth to those characters, it's like, oh, they're not. And then what is that? So I've been killing all these people. Like, you know what I mean?
So like as a concept, I understand it, and it's been very well developed and used in like sci-fi fantasy, especially. But I feel like it's sort of played out at this point. Like I don't like to see it as often anymore. Like I don't mind it, like if you have like a race of evil creatures that are just evil, so like we don't have no moral dilemmas, I don't mind that. I don't hate that as like a concept, but I feel like storytelling has evolved a bit more, especially in these genres that are like newer, where we can like have these moral dilemmas and have more gray characters, and we don't have to have a hero that's like morally the epitome of good anymore. We can just have like complicated humans that we follow. So I don't love to see it, I have to say.
Fair enough. And what are your feelings, Matt?
I'm like, I have a bit of a mixed history with this kind of a trope, because my parents were really strict with video games I was allowed to play when I was younger.
Okay.
And so I could sell certain video games on this trope, basically.
Wow. Okay.
So like playing Halo for the first time, like Halo Reach, my first Halo game, it was because, Mom, I'm not killing people, I'm killing aliens.
Oh.
And she's like, okay. And like the original Star Wars Battlefront games, it was, I'm not killing people, I'm killing droids in this one level that I've decided to show you. But like, I agree that it's definitely been used more to try and like highlight the good nature of your main characters, or like to just show a real contrast of, these are your good guys, these are your bad guys. These guys, the bad guys, they can die. You can kill every single one of them. You probably won't feel any real remorse. It's just a thing. It's like a chore that the hero or main characters have to go through. It's not a big deal. Yeah, I've got to say that in terms of like an actual story trope, it's probably not my favorite, because it does, I'm always a big fan of the villains. They're just usually cooler than the good guys are. And I've always thought that to make a story really great, you have to have a great villain. You have to have an opposing side that you can either relate to or just kind of understand why they're doing something possibly evil, and you can't usually get that if it's just droids taking over the universe for the sake of droids taking over the universe or whatever, you know.
Right.
So I think it can have its place, usually in a more like lighthearted or maybe more of like a children's story where the kids don't need to try and worry about the human experience relating on both sides of a conflict. It's just, I want the good guy to win, so they need to wipe these guys out and not feel bad about it in the long run, basically. So
yeah, I think that's fascinating, like the way you guys phrase it, and that it takes the villain element out. And I think, I guess I see it more as like, as those humans who are going up against that force, like there is no,
it makes it terrifying too, though.
Yeah, exactly. Like going up
they're
against
not
a
second
droid,
guessing attacking you.
Exactly. Yeah, there's no sympathy you're going to get from a droid. Like you get some comedic moments in the prequels and in the Clone Wars, but like, you know, when you're face down to like this robotic being who's programmed to kill you, there's no room for, you know, discussion and you know, we both
can't barter with them, reason with them. It's just, this was their goal. They were created for this one single goal, and if you don't stop them, they will probably kill you. So it does make the stakes feel a bit higher sometimes, but yeah.
And then I feel like there also is like a hybrid of the two. And the example I'm pulling from is like Dragon Age, where you have two factions, but it's like one of them is corrupted. So they've sort of lost their humanity, but you know, in the same way, they still are human. And I guess you could even apply the same thing to like zombie, somebody like Walking Dead or any sort of zombie apocalyptic event, where like they are still people, but they've changed so far past what made us, you know, have a binding sort of relationship that, you know, you're more removed. But then that statement alone, like that could just be war. Like, you know, war changes people and conflict changes people. So when you lose that common ground, like it might as well be a robot, which I just think is interesting that like all these things were going on in Tolkien's head and he couldn't decide which one was more scary. Like these being like you having to like, say you're an elf and like you're fighting an uruk-hai and you can like tell that that's someone you used to know. And you and
that would be messed up, man.
Yeah, you can't separate like, you know, the difference. But also if you're an elf and you're just staring down this thing that you can't understand because it's a thing that was made and not naturally, it's just like, I don't know what's worse. And Luca, I think when we did our review of Wheel of Time, we talked about like what's the bad guy's name? The ancient one or
the dark one?
The dark one, yeah. The most stereotypical bad guy name. With the dark one, it's like we talked about when it was like a floaty, creepy, bad CGI entity, it wasn't scary at all because it was just like, you know, very trope. But when you know, pull a little bit back, and spoilers for people who haven't seen Wheel of Time, and you know, you're faced with just like a man, that to me is like way more terrifying. I mean, like, you know, the other people on the side of the battle, like they're also people, they're just different from us, and our ideological differences makes us like these ravenous, you know, murder hungry people. It's like, it shouldn't be this way. But I don't know.
I mean, like that, like the modern take on this trope is what you're talking about, like a group of people that has been somehow changed, and you know that they're people, there's like no ambiguity about what they are. It's just their like mentality has been corrupted to the point that they're essentially zombie like people.
Oh, see, I think that's interesting too. Like, not just like when I was talking about these Dragon Ages, like, you know, they get the red lyrium, they change, they're literally different.
They physically change too. But there's like, I don't know if you've read like I just finished Black Song, like the Wolf's Call and Black Song, which is the, I don't know if did you read those two?
Yes, I did.
So like in that one, in Black Song and in Wolf's Call, there's the army of people that have been like enthralled to this living god, and they're like devout and obsessed with him, and they'll do whatever he says, but like, you know, that they're people. And it's very clear that they're still like living humans, that like the only thing that's changed is their mentality.
They've been radicalized.
So like this is like the way a lot of sort of modern stories that I've read have done this trope, where it's like, yes, you get the sort of action side of it where you get like an army to destroy, but then there's the moral dilemma of these are actual real people that you're
Right.
murdering. Like this, you're not morally correct to do this.
Man, Luca, you're really gonna enjoy Rhythm of War, my man.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's something Brandon Sanderson does really well, and I won't spoil stuff for you here. But like the singers or the Parshendi,
Yeah.
from certain character points, they're not quite the mindless army.
Mm-hmm.
But for some characters, it's very much us or them. There's no other way about it. And Rhythm of War does a really, really good job, and a little bit of the end of Oathbringer as well. But Rhythm of War specifically has some flashbacks and some character sequences from the point of view of Parshendi characters, and it really kind of changes the dynamic of that conflict a lot.
Okay.
And humanizes both sides in quite a twist. So I won't say more, but yeah, it's a great time.
Brandon Sanderson is really good at making like he specifically chooses not to use like races that have existed in other works, like orcs and elves and dwarves. Like he creates his own new non-human races. And like the Parshendi are one of the most fascinating like fantasy cultures and races that I've ever read, like in all of fantasy.
And it's nice because there's no pre-existing connotation of good or evil for these characters because they haven't showed up before. Like the Parshendi are just something so cool in the way that they grew with the planet. And again, like I'll try not to spoil more stuff, but their forms, there's a lot more to the forms and how they work, and you'll see that as it goes on. But yeah, I definitely prefer when an author or any type of media chooses to go along with like the two sides on an opposing, or two opposing sides in a conflict having more like human characteristics that you can at least try and be like, well, I don't think either of you are probably in the full right here, but neither of you are in the full wrong. So
yeah,
it's just more interesting.
Just poor circumstances that have led these two otherwise good factions against each
or
other.
Like, you know, external manipulation and stuff like that, where it just is, it makes it a lot cooler and more intriguing to read. It leaves a mystery behind stuff as you slowly unravel stuff, unravel like people's motives. That's the one. Thank you. Yeah.
The last thing I'll mention is I think I've talked about this show on the podcast before. It is the hardest sell because it's the dumbest name. It's called Gargantua on the Vendorous Planet, and it's this anime. It's only about 25 episodes long. And I'm just gonna spoil it because I don't expect
I've never heard of it before. So,
but basically, it deals with this like humans on Earth get so technologically advanced that and this is sort of the climax. So you're with a character who, you know, humans have been living in space for like thousands of years, and they have like this non-ending war with this type of space-dwelling creature called the Hideow. They're like these weird, like organic, sort of almost manta ray looking like alien creatures. And in a fight with one of these things, one of these humans, he pilots a mech, gets sucked through like this wormhole and ends up back on the distant future Earth. So, you know, thousands and thousands of years later, Earth is like completely submerged in water and people live on like rafts. And so, you know, he's trying to like get back to his space colony, and he sees in the water of the now Earth this same sort of manta ray creature. And the Earth people are like, oh, we live in peace with them. We call them whale squids. You know, they don't bug us, we don't bug them. But he can't help himself from wanting to fight them because, you know, generations of being at war with these people. But you learn that the reason why this is happening is because there was two factions of humanity when the Earth was dying that said we will use technological advancement to survive in space, and another race of people that said we will, you know, physically change our bodies enough to the point that we can survive in space or survive on this dying Earth. And so there's like a very great reveal where you see like a character become one of these whale squid type beings. And so you learn that like it's not, you know, alien race versus the far-flung humans. It's just humans still fighting against each other. It's like this beautiful, tragic moment of like, oh wow, yeah, we really can't escape this fucking cycle.
Dude, that show sounds amazing.
Yeah, I'm sorry if I spoiled
it. It's okay. It's okay, but like, wow, that's a great twist.
Yeah, it's still a really good show and it's fun. It's really well animated and stuff. So you should check it out if you feel so inclined. But I will throw the reins over to you here, Matt. What do you got for us today?
Okay, today the topic I brought with was favorite trilogies in media.
Ooh.
Because I just finished for the first time watching the new 2011, 2012, 2014, and 2017 Planet of the Apes trilogy.
Ah.
And it is very, very good. The first one,
Rise, Dawn, and
Rise,
War.
Dawn, and War. Yep.
Yeah.
The first one I forget who it was directed by, and then the last two were directed by Matt Reeves, who's doing the new Batman movie. And I think it just gave me a real appreciation for a storyline and an arc for a character that can span multiple series or multiple entries in a certain series and have like legitimate payoff at the end of it. Like Caesar's arc through those three movies is basically a child living in a completely unknown world, almost as a pet, and slowly learning about humans. And then the second movie, he's like, we're better than humans. We don't kill. We don't do this kind of stuff unless we're threatened. Mm-hmm. And then a little bit of spoilers. At the end of the movie, one of the other apes starts to kills another ape. And he's like, we've never been better than the humans. We've always been the same like this. And then the third movie is them like coming to terms with that and dealing with the repercussions of their actions in the previous films. And it was really, really cool to see him grow from this young, inexperienced little monkey that was just hanging out and, playing around on a tire swing. And next thing you know, he's leading a massive colony of apes trying to survive in the wild while he's like taking care of his son and his wife and stuff. And it was really, really cool to see. And I just kind of wanted to like ask you guys what your favorite trilogies were. And because like we've gotten examples of bad trilogies.
Yeah.
Star Wars, the new Star Wars trilogies, where there's some good moments, but it's pretty clear they didn't have a unified vision and it ruins the whole story over the three films.
Right.
Whereas like the original trilogy, 4, 5, and 6, there was at least a fairly coherent plan for George Lucas going through that. And it was one of the best trilogies probably ever made. Right. So yeah, I was curious if you guys have any like really, it doesn't have to be like just movies as well. I mean like books, video games, stuff like that, any type of just trilogy.
So one thing I just want to bring up is like you, I fell in love with I had seen the original Planet of the Apes movie.
Yeah, the 1971
because it's a cult classic,
yeah.
Or 67 or whatever the case. But
old.
Charlton Heston. And then I saw Rise of the Planet of the Apes. And so I became like enamored with this universe. And then I discovered that there were more films. So I did the mistake of watching the Tim Burton one from 2002 or something. That movie's awful. And I don't consider it part of the film universe. Of the Planet
like Matt Damon is in it and stuff, I think,
it's
right?
So fucking bad.
Yeah.
Mark Wahlberg.
It might
really
be Mark
bad.
Wahlberg.
Yeah, I think it is Mark Wahlberg.
I saw it on Disney Plus and I was like, I'm not watching that.
It's terrible. Skip it. But there are 5 films in the original Planet of the Apes arc. And some of them are like very low budget, but they're all incredible. So you get Planet of the Apes, the original. Planet of the Apes, Return to the Planet of the Apes, or Beneath the Planet of the Apes is the second one. And it deals with another astronaut party that goes there and finds out that there are humans underneath. And it's one of the weirdest endings to a movie I've ever seen. It basically fades to black and says the planet was destroyed. And that's it. And then the third movie is the 2 ape doctors from the first movie. Her name starts with a Zira. I can't remember. But the woman and the man, Cornelius and his wife, they know that the planet's going to explode at the end of the second movie, and they leave the planet in a rocket and somehow travel back in time to what was then a modern Earth. So like 1970s Earth. And they're like these talking apes in, I think it's New York City, or maybe it's in California somewhere. And it's like, you would think it'd be like this stupid fish out of water movie, but it's brilliant because it's like, yeah, in the future, like we live in harmony, and then they have to slowly reveal that humans don't exist. And so the people start freaking out, like, these apes are going to spell the end of the world because they're coming back in time to set these things in motion, type of thing. And basically it ends with, Jesus, what's her name? Zena, whatever. She gives birth to a child, and that child is Caesar. Caesar gets swapped out with another monkey in a circus. And like one of the humans like actually shoots a monkey in the film, which is very jarring, to try to stop this sort of thing from happening. But it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy where like Caesar gets raised in a circus and then eventually becomes a similar version to the Caesar we see in this, like Matt Reeves or Rupert Wyatt directed the first one, Trilogy. It's very, very cool. Excuse me. And I definitely, they sell them in like a steelbook case. We can get all 5.
They're all on Disney Plus.
Oh, okay. Even better. Yeah. I totally recommend watching all of them. Some of them are a little bit, the special effects are not there.
Yeah.
But that is definitely like, it is up there for me. And I didn't expect it to be, because I love Rise of the Planet of the Apes. I love Dawn. I love War. And I didn't expect to go back and be like, this is an 8-film, cinematic world that nobody fucking talks about. And it's so good.
It's wild.
So yeah, I'd say that's probably up there for me, but I have to say my number 1 trilogy of all time is the Lord of the Rings films. And it's tough for me to say it's not Star Wars anymore, but it really isn't. I love Star Wars more than anything, more than Lord of the Rings, but I can't deny that those are perfect films.
You can enjoy the universe of Star Wars more, but the films of Lord of the Rings better.
Yeah, they're just,
because I think I'm probably like right up there with you.
Yeah, I think it's exactly what you said. There's nothing I can point to in that first 3 films that I think should have been done differently. I think it's perfect. Yeah. What about you, Luca?
Yeah, in terms of like favorite trilogy, it's the Lord of the Rings for sure. But if we're talking about like a trilogy that's like a character arc, I loved the Raven Shadow trilogy.
Yes!
Like,
let's go.
Like Vaelid Al Sorna's
say
character
it.
arc is so good. But his arc continues into 5 books technically.
Right.
So it's not really a trilogy, because like the final bit of it, and it might even continue past the 5th, like the 5th book. And I do too. I love it. But then one that I will mention that's not done, and it will be Dune. And if Denis gets to make 3 films, because he has said that he can do Paul Atreides' story in 3 films.
I hope so.
That will, I think, be the best character arc trilogy, because like I'm right now maybe 2/3 of the way through the first book, and I would say that this Dune movie is the best book to film adaptation I've ever seen, including Lord of the Rings, I have to say.
Wow. Yeah. I haven't read the books, but that Dune movie was incredible. I really loved it, and I'm glad that it was kind of slow and taking its time.
Exactly.
So if they can keep that quality up for a full trilogy, I'd be over the moon, super happy with that.
Yeah, I think like I think the thing that Dune the movie didn't get for me, and I understand why, because a lot of people, when you say adaptation, they want it to be 1-to-1, and it doesn't work for film.
It never does.
It just can't be done. That's why Lord of the Rings works. Like there's subtle choices in the adaptation of those films that elevate them as a movie project. But what Dune does is, as an adaptation, it takes out elements that would be sort of like spoilers and wouldn't lend themselves to like there are passages in Dune where exactly where this character is going to end up. It's already spelled out for you, but you're watching it sort of in real time, and there's nothing you can do about it. So it gives you like this sense of like, you're making wrong moves at every turn of the way, and you can see the future. Like, how are you slipping? But yeah, I don't know. I think as an adaptation, it's hard to disagree with you, Luca. Like Dune 2021 being so what it should be. I would put it on par with Lord of the Rings as the best adaptations of all time.
It feels like to me, while I'm reading the book, I'm like, wow, this feels like visually what I would think. Like the movie looks like maybe it's because I watched the movie first and now I'm reading the book, so like having the images in my head, but like the tone of it feels the same, like the cinematography, the way it looks. Whereas like Lord of the Rings 2, it does, but like there's some character change. Like book Aragorn versus movie Aragorn is like a very different character. Whereas I feel like Paul Atreides movie to book, at least in this first movie, was like almost flawlessly done.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say if Dune ends up being, like you said, like 3 films at this quality, I think that will be my number 1 trilogy of all time. If they do 3 movies, and I really hope they do.
Nice. I'll drop in another quick trilogy, the Mass Effect trilogy. Super.
Oh yeah, I would agree with you there.
Yeah,
I think the Halo trilogy, like 1, 2, and 3, could probably be right up there as well. Like John, I've been replaying Halo 1 and knowing where he ends up, disregarding 4, his arc is pretty fun. He definitely becomes much more attached to Cortana as the series goes on. I didn't even play 5, so I can't talk about that one. But yeah, I mean, just a well executed trilogy just hits so well. It's not always easy to find.
Mark Lawrence too. I can't believe I didn't even mention. Like, I don't know, you guys probably haven't read, but any trilogy he's written, and it's so good. So he's the one that's really on. Like Matt, you know, he's on Anthony Ryan's books. Like his quote is on all of Anthony Ryan's books.
Yeah, which is a great fucking weird thing that, well, maybe it's not that weird, but that, you know, you and I discovering Evan Winter, and then I see the quote from Anthony Ryan, and I'm like, oh, who's this guy? And then I get into Anthony Ryan, you're into Mark Lawrence, and just like, you know, maybe they're all with Orbit. I don't know.
Oh yeah, maybe actually.
Yeah,
I don't know. I've been tearing through Anthony Ryan's work. Like, I finished A Pilgrimage of Swords. I finished.
We have to talk about this. What did you think?
It was amazing. I loved it. And I also finished The Kraken's Tooth.
Mark Lawrence.
Yes, The Prince of Thorns. Yep, that is book 1 of the Broken Empire trilogy. A fantastic trilogy, grim dark. I loved it. And then in the same universe, he did the Red Queen's War trilogy.
Okay, cool. I mean, I've got the first one, so I'll definitely start it.
Nice. And you should start the Raven Shadow as well, Matt. You would probably love that.
I mean, if we're doing trilogies, you guys got to read the Mistborn trilogies in the Cosmic.
I have the first Mistborn book.
Good.
Very not started yet.
The second Mistborn trilogy, the second book in that trilogy, is going to be 4 books, but the second one of the current trilogy made me cry like a baby at the end.
Okay.
Oh my god.
That's Mistborn era 2, right?
Yeah, Shadows of Self is the second one in that.
Okay.
And oh boy.
All right.
So I got a quick question for you guys. Just speaking about trilogies, if you could take one film and remake it out of one trilogy, just one film, which trilogy would you choose? Or book or game, whatever the case is. One entry in a trilogy, you can take it out and put something else in there. I'm going to start, and I had a tough time choosing which film I would take out. It's between 2, and it's either Phantom Menace or Attack of the Clones.
Yeah. So I'm a little upset you might have chosen Phantom Menace.
Oh, really?
It's a good movie.
Oh, come on. Come on.
Look, it's not perfect, but Attack of the Clones is so much worse.
See, I am the opposite way. I think I know people love Phantom Menace, and there's absolutely moments like all other Star Wars movies that I love in Phantom Menace and are so important to the story, but I can't stand it. It's the one movie I would be okay with people skipping.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think Attack of the Clones has so much character development for Anakin, and like lets you know why he goes the way he goes in subsequent films, that I think it's, and there used to be, I don't think they're on YouTube anymore because they probably got taken down, but there was something called the anti-cheese edits of the prequels, and they take out all the crappy dialogue, and the movies end up being like 45 minutes. It tells you a lot about the dialogue, but they're so fucking good, and they make Attack of the Clones so juicy, and like I want that movie, ultra dark Attack of the Clones, where we really see like the fall.
Yeah, I'm a prequel lover. I wouldn't have touched any of the prequels. It would have probably been the sequel trilogy that I would have.
Yeah, I feel like because I'm older when those came out, I'm more like
critical of it.
It's for a different generation.
Yeah.
And it's not for me. And the prequels are my thing. And it's like, if I could make this thing perfect, I would just, you know, maybe that we'd take out the sand line, which I actually don't, it's not even my least favorite line. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah. Do you have one, Luca?
So you're saying something that you would like change in an existing trilogy that's already been made?
Yeah, if you could remake one of the entries.
Oh, and it has to be a trilogy?
It doesn't, or a series.
Honestly, actually, it might be The Matrix.
Ooh.
I think I'd like to see The Matrix, the third film, be like remade. Like, if any of those were to be remade, I'd want the ending of The Matrix to be like maybe thought through a bit more and remade, and then just erase the fourth. I mean, just pretend the fourth one doesn't exist. Like, that is just an abomination.
Fair enough. Oh man, this is a tough question.
I always like to throw tough questions right at the end of a segment.
Yeah, it's perfect.
So we can stumble
Perfect.
for a little bit.
Man. I don't know. I'm like looking at my bookshelf trying to see if there's anything that I would have wanted to change. Maybe. Oh, can I change? I don't know if it counts. Can I change like a season of a multi-season show?
Sure, let's do that.
Last season of Game of Thrones. Fucking
Too easy.
holy. I
Yeah.
love that show so much. And then that last season came out, and I was like, I can never rewatch this show ever again.
Wow. Yeah, that was a
I'm
big
there with
nail
you,
in the
man.
coffin.
That was
Yeah.
a bunch of cowardly decisions.
Yeah, man. I was always so hyped. I'd rewatch the whole show before every new season would come out. I'd be like, oh yeah, we're ready. And then that last season came out, and I was like, oh, we're done here.
That prompts another question for me. Do you guys feel like the last season of Game of Thrones is the equivalent of episode 9 of Star Wars for you?
Oh,
Was it as damaging to your love of the franchise? Or
Man.
episode 8?
you know what? I think the thing is that upon my first viewing in theater, I went to at like a 11:30 showing or something to
Mhm.
Rise of Skywalker. On first showing, I enjoyed the movie.
Me too.
And then I watched it a second time, and I was like, none of this makes any sense. What the fuck? It
Yeah.
looks cool. The beats are fun. The characters have some cool moments, and it looks
Mhm.
great. But then the plot falls apart as soon as you look at it, and you're like, oh,
yeah.
I don't like. There were parts of that for that Game of Thrones season I just genuinely didn't enjoy at all. The first time I watched it, I was like, "What's going on here, man?"
And it's not even that the plot of Game of Thrones falls apart. It's that it's fucking stupid. Like,
Yeah.
Some of the choices are just bizarre.
Somehow Arya's sneaking past that entire army of White Walkers in Winterfell just to stab the one leading White Walker by himself. Like, I get that you're a trained assassin and stuff, but you weren't hiding. You weren't in a disguise. You didn't jump down from
Yeah.
on top of a building.
Yeah,
You
your whole
ran
thing that
through
made you
the
who you are.
entire army to get to this guy. It's like, all right, cool. Yeah, I definitely think Game of Thrones
Yeah.
ruined it a little bit more.
Fair enough.
I hated both of these things on first viewing, like immediately.
Yeah, fair enough. Phil.
But to me, Game of Thrones was worse. Like the love I had for Game of Thrones was a
Oh,
lot bigger
yeah.
than I had for Star Wars going
I was
in.
so obsessed with that show.
And like the deterioration of quality in Game of Thrones was just so like jarring. Like
Yeah.
if you like look at seasons 1 through 4 and then just jump to season 8, it's like it doesn't even feel like the
No.
same show at that point anymore. Like
Yeah.
it's completely different. Whereas like Star Wars, people already hated the prequel trilogies, you know, like there was
Yeah.
already
Yeah.
there's already anger, and like 7 and 8 had already come out that were like not great movies. And honestly, when 8 came out, you could already tell they had no overarching like trilogy plan, because like 8,
That's what it was for me.
Yeah,
I think
for
8
sure.
was the slap in the face, and 9, it's like someone pushes you over and then helps you back up. You're still a dick, but, but
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, like
so I would
season.
say Game of Thrones was a bigger like gut punch to me.
Yes, season 1 through 4 of Game of Thrones was some of the best television I've ever watched.
Yeah.
Like it was so good week in, week out. And I didn't even get to watch it when it was releasing those first 3 seasons. I think I jumped
Same,
in when
yeah.
season 4 was coming. So I binged a whole bunch of it, and I was like, oh my goodness, I need every little piece of this that I can get. And I started reading the books, and then I realized that we'll probably just never get an ending to that series. So I was like,
Yeah.
well, I'm gonna put those back down now. But, yeah.
well, end on a sour note.
Hey, you know what, guys? Just watch Game of Thrones season 1 through 4 and then make up your own endings.
Yeah.
Because that's what the writers said for the
Yeah,
for
shows.
real.
So like you might have a
Watch
better
Game of
shot.
Thrones 1 through 4 and then just keep playing it as a D&D game. And
Yeah,
Yeah,
like Game of
exactly.
Thrones 5 through 8 is like the worst fanfic you've ever seen.
I don't know,
Yeah.
man. The Last Jedi's up there. Anyways,
You're not wrong.
Matt, thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me on again, guys.
Yeah, for sure. Anytime. Yeah, catch the show every Tuesday, and you can catch the clip outs on the Wednesdays following. And we are, I promise, going to do the Dune review. We are nearing the end. Luca's about 2/3 of the way through.
Yep.
I am on book 3 of Dune. So it's going to be quick here. Just another 3 months and then we'll be on to it. But yeah, thanks a lot. As always, I'm Matt.
I'm Luca.
And I'm Matt.
And we are the Lords of Lore.